back to Open Roads and Open Hearts. This is Craig. I'm by myself today. I am sitting in the back of a Walmart parking lot in Knoxville, Tennessee. It's actually the Walmart that's attached to University of Tennessee, so it's pretty nice. But behind me is basically a pile of garbage and an old smokestack. Reminds me a lot of Pittsburgh. Today's episode, I'm just going to talk about the idealism of a location-independent lifestyle. It's something that I have been pretty obsessed with for pretty long, and obviously this brand has a lot to do with that. When I lived in Austin, Texas, it kind of really hit that that's what I wanted to do. For a long time, I lived in Pennsylvania, in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania specifically, and I wanted to get out and see more of the world. I don't necessarily believe in the geographic cure, which is, that moving somewhere will solve your problems. It absolutely won't. Basically, I did think that about moving to Austin. So when we moved to Austin, Texas, I basically was doing it so that I could have a location excuse for why I wasn't doing what I wanted to in filmmaking, or was hoping that there'd be more opportunities there in Austin, Texas. And things just got weird. The filmmaking people I met there, some of them were really cool. I got threatened. Someone told me they were going to stab me at a networking meeting because I was talking about the business of filmmaking, and they were talking about really esoteric art type things that didn't really matter. Like, he showed me his reel and the kind of the work he was doing, and it was interesting, and it wasn't bad by any means, but it wasn't any. It was like David Lynch, Eraserhead type stuff. And I tried commenting on that and saying that, it's okay that that's how that is, but that's not really what I do. And he was just really pissed and just lost it. And I don't know, maybe he was drinking too much or something. But I had a lot of run-ins, weird interactions like that when I was in Austin, Texas. And I started to realize, okay, this just being in a different place is not going to solve the problem. And actually, Austin, Texas was way too expensive for us to keep living in. If you heard the first episode of this podcast, Rachael and I both talk about that. Basically, now we were in Austin and realized, okay, this isn't going to work. So what do we want to do? We met a couple. Their names are Connor and Brittany. They're actually pretty big YouTubers now. They were decent sized YouTubers at the time, but they've really exploded since then. We went to a gathering of theirs. Rachael had been talking to Brittany online, back and forth. We were supposed to meet up with them and hang out, and it just never ended up working out. There's so much to do in Austin that they have trouble making plans, and that's okay. That's kind of like, we weren't ready for that lifestyle because everything's so planned out in Pittsburgh. And it's funny because now I live a little more like that. I do schedule a lot of things, but I also like to leave a lot of time open to just kind of do whatever I feel like doing and going with the flow of things, especially when in a new place or visiting somewhere. And they live out of an RV full time. And through them, we found quite a few other people that do the same thing. And that's when, I stumbled upon the hashtag van life trend going on Instagram and YouTube, and it's huge. I had vaguely heard of this whole digital nomad thing before, but only ever really in regards to web designers. I mean, there's some websites, blogs from the early 2000s where people started figuring out, I can sell my house and I can make, for a long time, people have been doing this, right? They've been selling their house and living out of an RV when they retire. Well, what these people that were developing websites figured out is you don't need to wait till you retire to do that. A lot of the work that we're doing is on a computer, and despite what a lot of people keep trying to tell me, I really don't see that it's a necessity to be in an office. And if that's what you believe, that's okay. I just disagree. And I think for some people it'll work and some people it won't. It depends how good you are at communicating. And I think I'm hyper aware that when it comes to business things, that communication is necessary. I need to know that communication is necessary, though. I need to know what I'm communicating about. And that's really much easier for me when I'm doing freelance work than when I'm working for somebody else, because the expectations are really clear when you're doing a freelance project, or should be at least, exactly what is needed, when check-ins are due, and all that kind of thing. And if you can meet those, then you're in a good place. As a freelancer, as an independent contractor, people don't really expect the same amount of constant communication, kind of keeping tabs on what you're doing all the time. They'd rather just see the final products and say, good job, here's your paycheck, Hopefully they pay you. That's kind of the risk that comes along with freelance projects. But anyway, these web designers figured out that they could do that, and they kind of laid the groundwork where now, because content is such a booming business online, which if you don't know that, content's huge. People consume more video, more photos, more blog posts than ever before, basically because A, online has replaced television, which was a pretty big consumption area, and B, now people consume even when they're at work or on vacation. Basically everywhere has internet access now. People are constantly consuming, whether they realize it or not. There's a lot of passive consuming going on with things like Facebook, and it's pretty crazy. The amount of demand for content is wild, and once you can create a certain amount of content in a certain niche, you can then kind of build an audience, which then gives you access to their attention. And as long as you keep providing good content to them that they want to see, that adds value to their life, whether it's entertainment, inspiration, education, something in that field, something that keeps their attention, because people will find out pretty quickly if it's just kind of superficial, the content that you're creating for them. Once you have that attention, then advertisers want to pay to be part of that. And I think a lot of creators don't realize how much power they have in choosing how sponsorships and affiliate agreements work. But especially once you have a decent sized audience, and it doesn't even have to be huge, a couple thousand, even a consistent couple hundred will start getting you those kind of things. I mean, I have a YouTube channel that's just Craig Inzana, and I have a few videos on there that have done really well. I mean, moderately well as far as things are considered. That channel is so unfocused that it's not really it's funny because I do digital marketing and I study digital marketing, but up until now with that channel, I was completely unfocused. There was no direction to it. Sometimes I'd post stuff about building websites. Sometimes I'd post things about marketing. Sometimes I post things about self-improvement. And my most popular video is about tailored shirts. But out of that, the tailored shirts video, I made some AdSense money off of it, a couple $100s, and also used a referral link to save people money when they signed up for the thing that I was reviewing. And I made a credit towards that product whenever people would use that. And it's something that I didn't really need to negotiate. It's just something that automatically exists in a lot of tech products. Another one of my videos that was really popular was on a different channel. I made some video essays, and those made some ad revenue, which the way ad revenues work now has changed a lot. Through those things, I keep getting requests to do sponsorships for just really random things, some of which are offering to pay $50 to $100 per video or post. And some are literally just asking, they'll send me a product for free and they want me to review it. That's just without any kind of focused audience or strategic tactic. Now, what I'm doing is taking things that I care about and trying to build a brand around those things. I'm not trying to cash in on something that's already popular just because it's popular. There's plenty of things that I've thought about doing that in the past, and it just doesn't motivate me to create things if it's not something I'm already passionate about. So that's where this comes in. This podcast, this brand, this content is super young right now. I'm still just kind of working out how this is going to work, what kind of content I'm sharing here. But I love the idea of podcasts and I love creating them. I've already done a few. I've worked on a lot of them for other people, helping them market their podcasts. And I've worked in radio for quite a while too. So I love the talk format. I love just the conversation, which right now it could be something like this, where I'm just kind of having an honestly one-way conversation with you, where you could comment if you're watching it on YouTube or shoot me an email, whatever. It's not entirely one way because I'm talking right now, but usually there's at least a few people that end up commenting back and then we end up having a conversation. And that is just the coolest thing to me because conversation is just something that I really thrive off of. If I could figure out a way to make a living having conversations with people, that would be the dream job. I mean, I would be happy forever if that was my job. And so I have this brand, which again, I'm still just kind of working on, but I have, the openness value. I have the freedom obsession. Those things are things that I identify with. They're core to my being as a person. And when I look back, they always have been. I wasn't really able to identify it early on. and I got myself into some positions where I was more committed long-term to things than I really want to be, and I didn't really understand myself. It's interesting though, because even with the open relationship thing, I go back to when I was in college. I remember specifically my one friend, Danny, and I having long extended conversations about the same types of things I talk about with open relationships now, and I was having those then. I didn't really have the terminology behind it, and I didn't know other people were actually doing that. It was just kind of oh, wow, the way that the hippies did it, free love and really just being in the moment with somebody. That was pretty awesome. Like, we should get back to that. And it wasn't in a like, oh, I just want to cheat on my girlfriend, or oh, I want to sleep around. I want to be completely present with someone. And if there's a spark of emotion there, I want to explore that in any way that's possible, or any way that's realistic and right for the moment. And when you are in a monogamous relationship, that's not really a possibility. And I think there's benefits to monogamy, obviously. And at the time I just didn't know, but I was still kind of talking about the same things. I'd always talk about how much I wanted to travel, how I early on wanted to be a filmmaker for something like National Geographic. But then I realized I'm not really a huge fan of cinematography and cameras. So that didn't really work out either. But everything was boiling down to these two values of open roads and open hearts. And that's kind of where this idea for this brand came from. And also, that's kind of about 8 months ago, I started realizing I'm not going to be satisfied until I have a pretty decent amount of freedom in my life. So I'm working a job that's a full-time, show up at the office every day job, and it's not bad. I like it. I like the work. I love the people that I work with. I learned so much there, but I feel trapped. And the longer I stayed there, the longer I felt trapped. And I'm still there. I'll be there for a while still as part-time, and eventually we'll figure out how this is going to look long-term. But my goal eventually, which this could be a year from now, is to be living full-time out of my car or the RV that Rachael owns and traveling, or with friends that own vehicles and travel. I've met so many cool people now that are living this lifestyle. And especially because, I'm friends with a lot of content creators because of myself. I'm a content creator. I've helped a lot of people do their content creation marketing. And those things all tie back around into this freedom lifestyle. And the more you have that freedom, the lower your costs can be. Because that's the thing, is living in your car, although it's pretty uncomfortable, honestly, quite often. I just slept in a freezing parking lot, a Walmart parking lot last night. It wasn't glamorous at all. And it's most of the time not glamorous. I'm working on trying to do kind of some more blog type stuff or vlog type stuff, add photography to the Instagram. And I'm a little bit of a photographer, but I'm not anything close to the type of photographers you see on Instagram these days. Sometimes I'll get lucky and I'll get a good shot. I did bring my camera with me on this trip so I can take some more things besides just on my iPhone, although I often catch really good stuff on my iPhone just because it's there. And so the thing is, like, what am I going to do with this vlog? I think actually what I'm going to end up showing is kind of the less glamorous side. And it's not going to be as successful, and it's not going to reach as many people, and it's not going to get as much follows because it doesn't really follow that inspiration type thing. It does kind of follow more of the curiosity and education side. And that's kind of what I've always done. I'm a bit of a teacher naturally, so I like to teach people about digital marketing. I like to teach people about how to create content. I like to teach people about how to live a better life. I've been through a lot mentally and emotionally. I've dealt a lot with mental health issues. My whole family does. And through that, I've learned a lot about how to push through stress and push through a lot of these things that cause unhappiness in our modern society. And those are things I like to share. I try to be as modest as I can about it because I'm still constantly growing and learning. But I do feel like I'm at a pretty good place where I'm confident in my character as a person. I know I've been tested in a lot of ways, and some of the ways I responded to things early on were not of good character. And I've learned from those things and said to myself, I've looked hard at them and said, if that happens again, this is how I'm going to respond. I learned a lot from Marcus Aurelius, And Seneca is writing the Stoics. That's a type of philosophy, is Stoicism. And a lot of people think that means emotionless. And it's funny because a lot of people do call me a robot because I seem a little emotionless often. But really, it's about not worrying about the things that are out of your control. And that's been huge for me because I'm such an anxious person naturally. And being able to just step back and say, well, can't control that. Can't control that. And just, give it your best and then let it go. Give it your best, then let it go. And then give the next thing your best and let it go. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. This whole thing is I want to have the freedom to try a bunch of things and see where they go naturally without trying to force them. So I have the marketing content that I want to create, and I have the consulting stuff that I want to do eventually with marketing, and I have the movie making content that I'm creating about producing movies. That's Movies in the Black. I have a cohort workshop class type program thing I'm trying to develop through that movie making thing. And also I'm trying to make new movies, and I'm making this. So I'm doing a lot of things, and it probably makes my consistency suffer a bit. And honestly, the quality of each of these things is not the highest it could be. I could have better microphones. I could have more focused content. I could have better guests on each thing, but all of that's a work in progress. And basically where I'm at is just start. Just do the thing and see how people respond. What kind of happened with the movies thing was I released a piece of content that I had been sitting on for almost 2 years. I had this distribution flow chart that I had made after we made Blood on the Leaves. Basically, if I was going to do this again, how would I look at it? And I made a visual chart, and I was handing this out left and right when people would ask me to consult either officially or unofficially on their film projects. And I had like 3 in 1 month that I got asked about, and I ended up sending them this PDF which had the flowchart on it. And I was like, why am I just sitting on this? Up until then, I had a production company kind of a production company with Vincent Bernard, who we made the film with, called Sideline Pictures. And I just felt like that wasn't my own, because it wasn't. It was Vince's to start with. And it was always going to be Vincent's, and I was just going to be part of that. And I wanted something that was mine in a way that I could take risks with and not have to worry about putting anyone else at risk as far as the types of content I was making, or, there's a certain voice to every brand. So with Sideline Pictures, there was a certain voice to it, and my voice didn't really match necessarily what the voice was to that brand. And I don't know if Vincent's going to make any more movies or when he's going to. And we're not completely tied to each other. I definitely would work on more things with him, and I'm sure he would work in some capacity with me. And I'm going to ask him to help me if I end up producing another film locally. But I just wanted to do something on my own that I could, again, go back to this whole thing of freedom over and over again here. I wanted the freedom to just take risks, do things, and see how they went. And I released that distribution flow chart, and in the first day, it had over 1,000 unique users visit the site. Part of that is because I released it on basically every single filmmaking group on Facebook. But even that, I've done that before and only gotten a few hundred views, a few hundred unique users. And even out of that 1,000 users, I had 2 requests to consult on film projects. One of which I don't know if they're going to pay for it. And another one totally is. So that's exciting. And that's kind of where I looked at this and I said, I have to free up some time so that I can really put an effort into these things, including this one, and see where they go. I don't know how necessarily I'm monetizing both of these things or all of these things. Obviously, consulting is pretty obvious. And this brand, I have no idea how I'm going to monetize it. And I don't even know if I will. Maybe it's just a matter of, this is my passion project where I get to share all of the things that I'm doing in the realm of openness and kind of share that value, which is almost more important to me than monetization, because it's just a method of being heard on a scale. There's only so many people I can talk to in a day, where when I release a podcast and it gets even 60 views or 60 downloads, that's 60 people all at once hearing the same conversation. And then even better when people start commenting back and talking back, and then it's a whole conversation that there's no way I could have those conversations in person. I still have a lot of great conversations in person. I highly prioritize in-person communication, but I also realize the power of the internet to scale conversation. If I am one-on-one with a person, I try to give it my whole attention. A lot of times I'll end up being in the middle of working on something, but someone will start talking to me, and I'll allow space in my schedule to just push that stuff back, because it's really important to me to be fully engaged in the conversation. And I've learned so many interesting things from other people, and I get to share all these interesting things that I've learned with people. And I, over time, have found people really value that, because it's both listening and sharing, and listening and sharing. It's a constant give and take. It's a real conversation rather than just trying to sell you something. And in this case, it's a one-way conversation to begin with, but the idea is to eventually have more and more people responding and commenting back, which usually happens on my personal Facebook page when I share this, or I share similar things. Friends from all over the country that I have will respond, and we'll have mini conversations. Sometimes they're just really simple, like, thanks for sharing that. This specific part was really cool. Or it's, what do you think about this thing? And then we end up having a conversation. Or it's a, hey, I really disagree with you about this. And we have a whole conversation about that. And I think that's awesome. I love that aspect of social media. So the whole van life thing, the whole reason I'm doing that is to kind of free up myself to be more free, to free up myself and anyone who wants to join me in the journey, because Rachel's semi in the process of it. She's starting a business, but still it's very location dependent. So I'm working with her, and she's trying to figure out how that's going to work at scale, or in a location independent way eventually. I think she's happy though to even stay local for a while and do that, because it's a service that really needs filled in the area. So I've rambled long enough for this video. I really enjoyed this 20-30 minutes with you while I'm killing some time in Knoxville, Tennessee, in a really nice Walmart parking lot, which I hoped that I would be sleeping in tonight, but it looks like it's owned by a development firm of some sort. There's also a couple other businesses attached to this one building, so I don't think I'll be sleeping here tonight. It's way too nice. They're not gonna like my Reflectix window covered sleeping bag car in the corner of their parking lot. So I'll go to another Walmart, or I'll find a nice little pull off. There's quite a few little parks and stuff here, so I might just park in one of those. Anyway, I appreciate the time we're sharing together here. I hope that this gave you something to listen to on your ride to work or something. And I would love it if you would comment wherever you're listening. And if you're listening on something like iTunes, leave a review, because it gives me a lot of feedback just to know that you're listening, and it makes me feel more like this is a conversation. I love listening to podcasts, and I love interacting with the people that run the podcasts. So I would love that same kind of interaction with you. And if you're too shy and you don't want to, or it's kind of a waste of your time and you're just listening because it's passive, that's fine too. I appreciate your listening regardless. And I hope that you have a wonderful week until I see you or talk to you again. You can check out our website at ORAOH, which is Open Roads and Open Hearts. It's just the first letter of every word, .com. But ORAOH.com is where our blog is. You can subscribe to the newsletter there if you'd like. That will send an email to you every time there's a new blog post, whether it's a video, a podcast, or something written. Or you can subscribe wherever you're listening, whether it's on YouTube, follow on Facebook, subscribe on iTunes once this goes up on iTunes. And if you're listening and you'd like this to be on iTunes and it's not yet, I'm waiting until there's about 5 episodes to release it on iTunes just for promotion reasons. I won't get into that right now. I have a few really interesting interviews this trip that I'm going to be adding to this podcast about alternative lifestyles. So that's exciting, and I am really appreciative of your time. Thanks. Bye.